When I signed with WWE, I signed a deal with the devil.
The drugs took over my life.
I was playing Russian roulette.
𝗑𝗏𝗏𝗚𝗏 broke his neck 5 times. And that's not even the worst part of his story. He won Olympic gold, with injuries that would have sent others to the hospital. His country celebrated him, a warrior with a winning smile. He gave his all in every battle, even when his body couldn't hold up. His grit was his ruin, but it also made him one of the best wrestlers of all time.
When I was in the ring, I took a lot of pride in what I did.
Angle slam!
And I always wanted to be the best. I was always the best.
His strength of spirit was his biggest weakness.
Ice bags taped to every part of his body, shoulders, knees, back, neck.
Kurt Angle swallowed painkillers like Tic Tacs. He drove drunk, lied to colleagues and to his family. A spiral of addiction and self-destruction.
My life completely spun out of control.
F you, Vince.
Kurt Angle has achieved everything and lost everything. A life almost completely destroyed by drugs.
He's lucky he's not dead. Seriously.
Kurt Angle didn't break from defeat. He broke from victory, not from failed dreams, but from those he fulfilled, because he had no mercy on himself. This documentary could have been a heroic story, but as it is the dark side of Kurt Angle.
I used to be a role model 20 years ago. Now I'm a recovering addict.
Kurt Angle remembers many evenings fading into the mist. Evenings when he hoped he wouldn't wake up the next day. But the morning always came, and with it, the pain.
I would say that every evening I would put about 18 pills next to my counter. I'd be going through withdrawal when I woke up. I would throw those down and chew them up and swallow them.
He often needed a handful of pills just to get out of bed. Then it was off to the gym. He only wanted to be slightly high during training, just enough to silence his body, just enough to function.
This guy who's an Olympic gold medalist, one of the toughest guys I know, you don't think anything could happen to him. And you think he's bulletproof, but nobody is.
So many people in my family have had issues with drugs.
Drug issues run in the family. Addiction was no stranger to the Angles. Tragedy was inevitable. In 2003, Kurt Angle was a celebrated WWE superstar, but he couldn't enjoy the success because he was afraid for his beloved sister. She had been in 3 bad marriages. After 3 divorces, she felt worthless.
There was a point where my sister was getting in a lot of trouble. She didn't have money. She was taking a lot of drugs. I adored her. Great woman. Her value of herself became nothing. She just thought she was useless. And it drove her to a point where she started using drugs.
She was $35,000 in debt and asked Kurt for help. He gave her the money, hoping that she would sort her life out. But she didn't. Instead of paying off her debts, she bought heroin. When Angle found out, he gave her an ultimatum.
I told her that if she didn't get clean, I wasn't going to talk to her, ever. She didn't get clean. So for the next 8 months, I didn't talk to her. And then she overdosed.
It was one of those hazy evenings when Kurt hoped he'd never wake up again. He numbed himself with whatever he could get his hands on.
The next day, I have a 60-minute Ironman match with Brock Lesnar. I didn't want to do it. But I figured if I did do it, it would take my mind off Leah just for that 1 hour. So I did it.
Angle was supposed to be in the arena at 1 p.m., but he didn't show up.
Here I am, I'm in the hotel room, and I look at my pills. I said, fuck it. I took 20 of them, threw them in my mouth, chewed them up, and swallowed them.
Oh my God.
I didn't wake up till 5 o'clock in the afternoon the next day.
Angle arrived at the arena just before the show started. The producers had already worked out a plan B in case Angle was unable to compete in the scheduled 1-hour match. But Angle was able to function. The loss was like a light switch. His pain turned into energy.
I went out there and something just switched. So the light switch went off of me.
Angle says it sparked a fire in him that led to one of the best performances of his career. Without much preparation, he delivered one of the best Iron Man matches in WWE history.
You know, a lot of people would say if he's wrestling that night and his sister died the night before, he doesn't care. But that's the whole reason why I wrestled, was for my sister. Because that's what we did in my family. We showed each other love by doing actions. And this match was literally for my sister.
There wasn't much talking in the Angle family, especially not about feelings. There was only one topic.
So if we were sitting at the dinner table, we'd talk strictly about sports.
Sports wasn't a hobby for the Angles. It was a duty. Everyone was fit, disciplined, and determined. And they knew how to fight.
We had a hard time with the police department in the area where we lived.
They were all tough guys. You did not want to mess with the Angle boys.
Yeah, I'm not telling that story.
He flicked me in the back of the ear and I threw a spoon at him. He stood up and I stood up, and before I got up, he knocked me out. I mean, he knocked me out.
Yeah.
Kurt Angle's father was proud of his boys when they won in sports. He was a functional alcoholic.
I'd wake up early in the morning and he would pull that rum down and put, 2 glasses and drink them both and head to work.
Kurt's father worked in construction. Then, there was an accident. He fell from the scaffolding.
Now comes the tough part of the questions.
Okay.
Yeah, your dad had an accident. Do you remember where you were when that happened?
It just crushed me.
Before every match, I pray and kind of look up and think of my father. Right before I wrestle every match, it kind of gives me a little extra motivation.
At 16, Kurt lost his biggest motivator, but the loss flipped a switch in him. Shortly afterwards, he had a football match.
Something just switched.
Something inside him went out, and something else came on. The pain turned into energy, and Angle was able to function. The spectators couldn't believe what they were seeing. Touchdown, and another one. The grieving teenager was by far the best player on the field. Kurt was also suddenly unstoppable on the wrestling mat. The coaches quickly noticed he simply stopped losing. Year after year, he got better, more relentless, and at some point, it was clear the boy was on his way to the Olympics. One reason for this was the way he trained.
I did what you call exhaust training. I trained till I was exhausted, and that's when the training started.
His workouts were insane, brutal, inhuman. He ran 6 miles in 38 minutes, then 10 sprints up the hill with a training partner on his back, and 10 more alone, without a break. In the afternoon, hours of wrestling training. In the evening, weightlifting in the gym.
I did that consistently for 2 years. I did not stop. It was 10 hours a day, almost every single day.
He puts everything into everything he does, And I never seen him. He would come in to eat and run back on.
Angle trained as if his life depended on it. And in a way, it did. His plan was clear.
Win the Olympics,
Retire.
The Olympics are only once every 4 years. If you win here, you become a legend. But if you lose, that's it. The chance will probably never come again. Angle teamed up with the brilliant wrestler Dave Schultz, a mentor and one of his best friends. But that friendship came to a dark end.
The standoff between a SWAT team and the heir to a fortune continues tonight.
Still surround the DuPont mansion.
John DuPont, a dangerous delusionary millionaire, shot Dave Schultz. Kurt lost his brother in spirit just before the Olympics. Grief, pain, something inside him went out and something else came on. Angle won all his fights and gave his all in every match. He went beyond the limits of his body to win. But what happened next could have destroyed him forever.
So I put my head up to stop me from landing on my back. All I heard was a bunch of cracking and crunching in my neck. I knew I did something. When I got up, I couldn't feel my arms. And that's when I realized it was a lot worse than I thought.
Angle would rather sacrifice his neck than lose. Despite the broken vertebrae, he wanted to compete at the Olympics. The doctors said otherwise.
I went to a chiropractor. He said, you can do some real damage to your body, like paralysis. And if you go out there and you wrestle and you land on your head again, you probably won't live.
Pain was stabbing sharply down his spine, but he didn't listen to the doctors. He didn't listen to his body. He listened to the dream. He wanted gold. To be able to continue competing at all, he had painkillers injected before every match. 6 injections in his neck every day. The problem was that his opponents knew about the neck fracture. They tried to break him, literally.
My neck was still broken. I'd have a lot of pain in there.
Everybody that wrestled Kurt knew that his neck was hurt. And don't think for one second that their coaches wouldn't look, if you get in a clinch, you need to crank him. He was aware that people were trying to take him out.
Angle felt nothing. The painkillers worked, and they helped him to the top. Gold. A lifelong dream.
First thing I thought about, got on my knees and I thanked God, and I thought about my dad, and I thought about Dave Schultz, how proud of them they would have been of me.
My dad's always with me. Dave Schultz, they're all together pulling for me, rooting for me up there.
He was now wearing a gold medal around his broken neck. But what comes after life's greatest moment? He had built his entire life around this goal. What now? On a talk show, the host asked Angle if he could imagine going into pro wrestling.
I'd say no, due to the fact that I am a wrestler, a true wrestler, an Olympic champion wrestler.
Vince McMahon, the CEO of WWE, then actually made him an offer. Angle was skeptical. He saw himself as a real athlete and looked down on pro wrestling. But one disoriented evening, he switched on Monday Night Raw, and the skepticism crumbled.
Why am I so bitter about these guys making all this money? Why don't I try it?
And at that time, I was running around going, if you smell what the Rock is cooking. Steve Austin was middle fingers, drinking his beers.
It was full tilt, full speed ahead, make no apologies, push the envelope.
It was the Attitude Era. And Kurt came along at a time where he was trying to find his niche and just clicked.
Angle learned incredibly quickly, both in and out of the ring. An arrogant Olympic champion with a broad grin and a wimpy image.
This innocent, I love milk, man, I love cookies and the American way, and I fight for freedom and my country, and I believe in good. This naivete.
Name is Kurt Angle, and what the heck? I won a gold medal with a broken
Angle impressed Vince McMahon on the microphone because he was handed pages of promo texts and was able to memorize them word for word in just 10 minutes. Everyone at WWE knew that this kid had potential. He wasn't just an Olympic gold medalist, he was damn funny.
I'm just a sexy Kurt.
Sexy Kurt!
I'll make your ankle hurt. And Rey Mysterio, you're a boy in a man's world. And I'm a man who loves to play with boys. No, wait a minute. Shut up.
Angle had fun in his new job. Sometimes too much. During a pre-taped promo with Steve Austin, he kept having fits of laughter. At some point, Vince McMahon had had enough and fined anyone who laughed on set.
Every time you laugh, it's $2,000. Well, I ended up that night, I spent $14,000.
But he was so good. He was he had it all. He could cut promos, his vignettes and his backstage stuff was, next level. And then his work was just so solid.
The fans loved Angle and they loved to hate him. Everyone loved watching his matches because a Kurt Angle match was going to be a good match.
He could go backstage and do a vignette and make himself look like a complete doofus idiot. But then when you went to the ring, brother, I'm telling you, you had to have your boots laced up tight because that dude could go. He was a machine.
There's very few guys that you get in there with, they can just go with just about anyone. That's a rarity. And Kurt had that ability.
He was such an incredible athlete in the ring. Kurt was born to do this, and it showed by his immediate success.
Angle is known for his technical mastery, but one of his matches went down in history for its brutality.
He picked me up and suplexed me. I was supposed to go through that glass. I hit that glass, I was like, and I went straight down on my noggin.
His head kept hitting the concrete. I could hear it. And I was like, Shane, we gotta move on. He's like, no, throw me through the effing glass. It was supposed to be sugar glass and it was plexiglass. So we were going through real glass.
Angle repeatedly went beyond his physical limits in the ring. He suffered a particularly dangerous injury at SummerSlam 2000 when Angle's head hit the concrete floor. Triple H told the whole story on the Impulsive podcast.
But we come down and I watch his head smash into a control box. We hit and I go down and I hear Kurt start snoring. He's out like cold. This is where the story gets terrible because today we know about concussions and everything else. So I put my hand on him, I go, Kurt, you okay? And he wakes up and he starts trying to get up, take a mouthpiece that he doesn't have in, out of his mouth. He's out and has no idea where he is.
Angle was taken to the locker room after the injury, but doctors recklessly cleared him to return to the match. Thanks to intensive research in this area, we now know how irresponsible it was to give Angle the green light to wrestle anyway. In order to avoid brain damage, it is crucial that a concussion is allowed to heal. Kurt Angle is noticing increasing memory loss and cognitive problems. Doctors attribute this to concussions. Kurt Angle had one of the most legendary feuds with Brock Lesnar. Two exceptional talents, two real fighters. Again and again, colleagues wondered who would win in a real fight. Lesnar was talking smack behind the scenes. He said Angle was too small. When Angle realized this, he challenged Lesnar. The two fought for 15 minutes. Kurt Angle scored 2 takedowns and emerged victorious, but later said it was very close.
Let me tell you something, you stupid cave beast.
In the ring, they worked well together. They had a similar hard-hitting style. They laid into their punches. Of course, they protected each other, but among wrestlers, they were known for their stiffness.
Brock and I are the two stiffest guys in the business. There were times where Brock would yell at me. What did I do to you? That was his line. What did I do to you?
This toughness made for very entertaining matches, but eventually backfired.
Between the years of 2003 and 2006, I had a very bad string of luck. I was on Brock Lesnar's back. I had him in a chokehold, and I hit the turnbuckle and my head snapped sideways. And literally lost feeling in my left arm. Then I broke my neck.
9 out of 10 wrestlers would have ended their careers after a second neck fracture. But Angle carried on. When he told his boss Vince McMahon about his decision, Vince said, "Kurt, I love you." It was a shock for Angle, a pang of hurt, and consolation at the same time. Angle later said that these words moved him to tears. Love for performance, a pattern he knew from his own father and from himself. At WrestleMania 19, Kurt Angle faced Brock Lesnar. With a broken neck, he hoped that his enormous neck muscles would somehow protect him. A risky plan. But it worked. The match was hard-hitting, intense, technically brilliant, until the moment that overshadowed everything. Brock Lesnar jumped into a shooting star press, slipped, and crashed onto his own head. He survived with injuries and a concussion. Both were physically devastated after the match.
Everybody said that I was hard to handle. And I can imagine I was, probably.
Angle needed surgery. There were 2 options: a complex operation with a long downtime, or a quick procedure. Less stable, but with a quick return. Kurt opted for the shortcut. He was afraid of losing his spot on the card. No one in WWE was gone for long without being replaced.
Our business is very ego-driven and it's very competitive. And Kurt naturally is a world-class competitor, obviously. You can get injured instead of taking the time to rehab properly because you're so committed to being at the top, because you're so motivated, you don't give yourself proper time to heal.
And hopefully, over time, it'll heal properly and I won't have any pain at all.
Angle opted for the wrong surgery. It was a short-term fix, but only made things worse in the long run.
After 6 weeks of healing, I went right back to wrestling. I don't believe my neck fully healed. A couple months later, Brock Lesnar hit me over the head with a chair, but he went straight over on top of my head instead of swinging it sideways. When he did that, he broke my neck again. I made it all the way to WrestleMania against Eddie Guerrero, WrestleMania 20. Landed on the back of my head, and I broke my neck again. I believe early 2006, I broke my neck again.
Over time, Angle fell into a psychological hole. The constant neck injuries scared him. He defined himself by performance, by functioning, but his body no longer worked. The pain was constant. He took more and more pills. Eventually, he got to the point where he no longer wanted to live.
I grabbed about 25 painkillers and shoved them in my mouth and just swallowed them, hoping I wouldn't wake up the next day.
4 neck fractures in 2.5 years, plus countless other injuries. His body was crying out for a break in a sport where there are no breaks. The painkillers were no longer just a tool to get through matches. They became a shield against the darkness in his head, against the suicidal thoughts. The pills kept him alive, and at the same time, they brought him closer to death.
A very nerve-wracking time for me. You know, all morning, all I could think about was what if I hurt my neck?
The pain was unbearable. It went deeper than just his neck problems. It was the pressure to be the best, the fear of never being able to get back in the ring. It was losses that he had never come to terms with.
The higher I got, the better I felt. Or I should say, the less I felt. These painkillers can hide a lot of pain, not just physical, but emotional. By this time, I was already 40 deep into painkillers. It went higher, higher, higher. I was taking 65 of them a day. Your body builds a tolerance, and the more you take, the more you need. company knew, some of my friends knew. There were times where I passed out.
Time and again, 𝗛𝗚𝗚 fell asleep out of nowhere. Doctors were worried that it could be heart problems, but it was simply due to the amount of painkillers. But the story had a tragic aftermath. Shortly afterwards, Eddie Guerrero also repeatedly fell unconscious. He fell asleep in the backstage area in the middle of conversations, similar to Kurt Angle a few months earlier. But now the doctors assumed that painkillers were the cause. They were wrong. Eddie had severe heart problems, and he did not survive the next collapse. He died alone in a hotel room on November 13th, 2005. Another loss that hit Angle hard. He became more and more a shadow of his former self. His colleagues worried about him.
I have a lot of respect for Kurt, like a big brother. And to see him shaking, and it just made me angry. And I just got angry with him. Don't let people see you like that. You know, like, man, you Kurt Angle.
I gave him a call, and as we were talking there for about an hour to an hour and a half, and, you know, his voice changed from being very coherent to kind of starting to slur. And I've been around enough guys, I was honestly scared for him.
As he was over-medicating himself, trying to manage his pain, his personality started changing. And he knew he was carrying a burden. And you could see that that burden was starting to wear on him.
The addiction took hold of his mind. He forgot things, became paranoid, irritable, impulsive, and unpredictable. He broke off conversations in the middle of a sentence. Sometimes he talked for hours, sometimes he withdrew completely. When he was high, his cell phone became a weapon. He sent abusive messages, enraged and confused. He wrote about the women he liked and who he was jealous of. The next morning, it was all a blank to him. Once he even wrote to Vince McMahon himself, saying he wanted to kill him.
Vince, I'm gonna kick your ass when I see you. I don't remember texting Vince. I was high and I was texting him while I was high.
The worst thing was when the pills ran out. That's when he turned into a monster.
I'm going through a fucking withdrawal. And this motherfucker wants me to wrestle for him. That's all he cared about. Fuck you, Vince.
He shouted at people who tried to help him, lost control of his emotions. His body craved drugs, and everything was horrible.
Whenever I would run out, I'd go through the worst withdrawal. It's like getting tortured. Your skin's crawling. You can't think straight. Your body's shaking the whole time. You're out of breath all the time. There's nothing that compares to the pain you feel when you're going through withdrawal. It is the absolute worst feeling I've ever had. It would make you do crazy stuff. I mean, I started stealing pain meds and just doing crazy stuff that I never thought I would ever do.
Angle ordered 1,300 pills every month. His number one priority was to never run out of pills again. Everyday life no longer revolved around training or matches, but around prescriptions. He phoned doctors every other day, sometimes men with a degree who looked the other way. When that was no longer enough, he had painkillers sent to him illegally from Mexico. The numbers, the pharmacies, the handovers, everything became part of his system.
I was hiding the painkillers, I was hiding the injuries. When you get a hold of these drugs and they get a hold of you, there's no way to quit. I mean, I was taking enough to kill a horse.
In 2006, Kurt Angle finally slipped into a public scandal. A drug test revealed that he was taking steroids. The result? A 30-day suspension by WWE and a fine of $125,000. Angle argued that he had only taken the drug on doctor's orders, with a prescription. But his prescription had long since expired. Angle's attempts to talk his way out of it failed. Looking back, he is ashamed of it.
To see my name in Sports Illustrated, it's like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening.
It was heartbreaking.
when you see someone hell-bent on self-destruction and there's nothing you can do about it.
Kurt had one final conversation with Vince McMahon. Vince looked at Kurt and said, "If you keep this up, you're going to die." He offered him help, said he would pay for his rehab, but Kurt declined. The pills were now more important to him than the job. An argument broke out, and at some point he exposed himself in front of his boss.
I tore my hamstring, my groin muscle, and my ab muscle. It was so bad that my balls were black, okay? And my dick, black. I walk up and I pull my pants down to my ankles. I said, "How about this, Vince?"
Kurt Angle's departure wasn't a goodbye. It was a breakdown. He didn't leave with dignity, but with his head hung low. His move to TNA wasn't a second chance, it was a car crash.
He's one of the best ever. And now he's down at TNA. And I'm thinking, man, TNA, they're not at our level.
Even in TNA, Kurt Angle was an in-ring machine. Despite his broken body, every movement was a feat of strength, but the audience wasn't supposed to notice.
The problem was every single time he stepped in that ring, it was no holding back. And afterwards, he could barely move.
There would be times when he was backstage and I was really concerned, but then he'd go out there and it was like nothing was wrong. Like the red light would come on and then the machine would turn on.
If Kurt's leg fell off, he'd hop twice as fast just to make up for the loss of mobility. There is no, I'm hurt. It's part of what makes him insane, but it's part of what makes him beyond great.
In TNA, Angle further exacerbated his problems. He began to drink excessively and mix painkillers with alcohol, a life-threatening combination.
It's like 10 o'clock
Yeah,
and you're drinking?
I'm fine, Karen, I'm fine. Please don't make a big deal. Don't make a big deal.
Angle was always drinking on the way to the next show, because traveling was torture. Sitting in a car or plane for hours on end with broken joints was only bearable with alcohol.
Excuse me. We're gonna get one more, just one more.
You're turning into a drunk. You're gonna become an alcoholic.
No.
Yeah, you will. You're an addict. If you are addicted to one thing, you're gonna be addicted to another.
Even at home, Angle was permanently high. He was no longer able to hide his addiction from his family.
Happy New Year, I love you. I ain't gonna make it to New Year.
My worst fear came true and we were living it. My daughter trying to wake Kurt up and couldn't get him to wake up and telling him she didn't want him to die.
I woke up and she said, "Daddy, don't die, don't. Please wake up."
And I think I'll always be afraid that he could go back to that place.
That was the last time I took the pills.
These statements from 2008 were false. In this TNA documentary, Angle claimed he was clean, but secretly he was still using drugs.
You know what? Must be pretty cool to be Kurt Angle.
Shortly after Kurt Angle presented himself as clean in the documentary, his marriage collapsed. His wife Karen filed for divorce. Kurt had been unfaithful, a big reason for the end of his marriage. He later spoke about it. In interviews, he admitted that he had had an affair with Dawn Marie for over 2.5 years, a former WWE wrestler. His ex-wife publicly mentioned other names, including Kelly Kelly, Barbara Blank. It wasn't long before Kurt Angle remarried.
Kurt and I first met on a movie set. We started dating. He actually took me to Applebee's for our first date. 2 months later, we got engaged. Yeah, it was just love.
A new marriage, a new chance. He wanted this so much, but his addiction problems remained.
For me, it was travel, wrestle, take the pills, drink till I passed out, and wake up the next day. And even when I was home, I wasn't home. When I was home, I was always pretty high, and I was only home for 4 or 5 days a month. So I really didn't get to spend much time with my first daughter.
In 2009, something fundamental changed. 𝗏𝗏𝗘𝗏𝗏 was no longer driving drunk only once a week. He now drove drunk almost exclusively. Long distances, show weekends, hotel changes, always with alcohol in his bloodstream.
I'm driving, okay, from town to town, drinking a 12-pack of beer.
His life-threatening driving attracted attention. Police stopped him several times.
𝗏𝗏𝗘𝗏𝗏 faced a judge on DUI charges.
I got 4 DUIs in 5 years. I was lucky I didn't get more.
It was news that his fans would have gladly done without. An Olympic champion in handcuffs.
I remember calling my wife from jail after my 4th DUI, and she said, listen, I can't do this anymore. You either go to rehab or I'm taking the kids and I'm leaving.
You choose drugs over us. And your kids are going to know that and see that.
Angle had reached the most important turning point of his life. He realized that he needed help. He admitted to himself that he was no longer the 27-year-old who could win at the Olympics even with a broken neck. No longer the indestructible hero. No longer the man who could bite his way through anything. He went to the clinic and detoxed. He went through all the terrible withdrawal symptoms. The toughest fight of his life didn't take place in the ring, but within himself. And he saw it through until the end.
As soon as he came home, you could tell that he was like this. Like, he didn't know how to deal with a baby crying without taking pills and drinking. He didn't know how to deal with a nagging wife without taking pills and drinking.
Amid the wreckage, 𝗏𝗏𝗘𝗏𝗏 discovered a new purpose. He began to really care about his children, to really be there, awake and clear-headed. His children held him when the old pain came knocking again. They reminded him that it was worth staying strong, not for medals, not for titles, but for them.
This is the first time in my life that I no longer put me first.
He said, I feel like I'm not a prisoner anymore. I feel better. I feel normal.
𝗏𝗏𝗘𝗏𝗏 officially returned to the WWE in 2017. After 11 years, he was no longer the young Olympic gold medalist, no longer the broken superstar. He was a survivor. Vince McMahon and Angle had parted ways in a falling out. The reunion was anything but expected.
Well, Vince was always a father figure to me. I lost my dad at a young age, and he always gave me direction when I was in this company. The first second I saw him, the first thing he did is put his arms out. He wanted to hug me. Hold on.
Angle felt good physically and wanted to wrestle. But Vince put him in as general manager of Raw first. A comeback with a microphone, not a suplex. When he finally got back in the ring, he was no longer physically able to wrestle, as he later said. The reactions were polite, but not euphoric. At WrestleMania 35, 𝗏𝗏𝗘𝗏𝗏 faced Baron Corbin for his farewell match, an ending he could choose for himself. Not in a stupor, not on a stretcher, but in full consciousness. But his past still haunts him. Fans often call 𝗏𝗏𝗘𝗏𝗏𝗏 Perk Angle, a sarcastic reference to his abuse of the painkiller Percocet.
I know they're not saying it to try to hurt my feelings.
Does it hurt your feelings?
Yeah, but I know they don't mean it.
I think I want Kurt Angle to be remembered, not for the mistakes he's made, but what he was able to accomplish in his lifetime.
Kurt Angle broke his neck 5 times. But the real breaking happened on the inside. He functioned when something inside him went out. He fought until he couldn't fight anymore, and then fought some more. This documentary could have been a heroic story, but as it is the dark side of Kurt Angle. But Kurt has been clean since 2013. He hasn't relapsed since then, and now uses his story to help other addicts. He is no longer in the ring, but helps people who are on the same precipice as he once was. He no longer fights for gold, but for others to wake up tomorrow. He visits rehab facilities, speaks at events, provides support, and is, in a way, a hero. He defines himself so much by success, medals, titles, and victories. But above all, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 has turned the light back on, the light of his life. And perhaps that is the greatest victory of all.
There's always going to be a fight for him. He's always going to be battling and staying focused on the right things in his life, the good things in his life, and not the bad things that have happened to him. It's never too late to make changes in your life. It's never too late to save your own life. And that's what 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 did.
Oh, it's true. It's damn true.